Sally's family, they lived in Chicago. And Anne, her sister Anne, her sister Bertha, and Oda lived in Chicago.
Now, Bertha was married during the war, wasn't she?
Yes, Bertha was married. And he worked as a either soda pop or beer driver, truck driver.
That was Uncle Mo?
Uncle Mo, yeah. Unfortunately, he was a heavy drinker, and one morning he just passed away.
What do you remember about Roosevelt's death? Do you remember anything?
Roosevelt's death? Well, all I remember is when they announced that the president died, and the people generally all felt very sad about it. There was a lot of crying, just like he was a part of the family. And Truman took over, and things were going on according. Yeah, you want to go to your daddy there?
Come on, David. Come over to me, okay? Okay. Hi, David.
and things were going on according to the rules and regulations as of the war stability, that's all.
Stephen, could you go get me the bottle in the bag for the baby? It's on the,
Gary.
Gary, excuse me. Gary, could you get me
Ever
the bottle?
since I got over 5'10", he hasn't known my name.
What about Bernice's, the Victory in Europe Day and Victory Japan Day? Do you remember anything about those days? VE Day and VJ Day.
Well, there's nothing in particular that I can tell you what. Of course, we were all jubilant when it was over, and I felt like the rest of the people in this country felt. We were happy that the war was over. However, it wasn't quite over after Japan surrendered. Then we moved into the European end of the war.
And Phyllis was born right around that time.
Phyllis was born, I think, in 1945.
Well, I think it was 1945. I remember that.
Yes.
And do you remember what hospital she was born in?
Yes. She was born at the Methodist Hospital.
Same hospital I was born in.
By the same hospital.
Same hospital. Who was her doctor?
Her doctor was trying to think of the rest.
Mine was Rosenblum.
Yes. And her doctor.
That's not important. Do you remember anything special about her birth?
Yes. What I remember is that we were all going to, Mom and I, we were going to see a movie, The Affairs of Suzanne. We left the two boys at home, and I don't know if we had a babysitter or not. I don't think so, because one was 10 and he was already 6, 7 and a half, 8. I think they were at home.
Well, the 7.5-year-old was me, and
you and Sharon. And on the way going to the house, to the theater for the show, all of a sudden, Mother got a pain in her stomach. So, on the way going there, we had to pass by the Methodist Hospital. So I says, you know what? Before we go there, let's stop in and let them check you. So she did. And the doctor at the hospital over there checked her, and he came out and said, Mrs. Schwartz, I don't think you're going to see the affair of Suzanne. You'll have a normal affair at the hospital. Your wife is due to have a baby. So we called Dr. Richter. Sam Richter was the doctor that we called for when Phyllis was born. So he came over, and sure enough, before around 11 o'clock, she was here. And I right away called up Mom and Dad to tell them I got finally what I wanted, a girl. And it was a happy occasion, of course.
Didn't tell him because he had 6 fingers on one hand.
Well, one of the things that I understand Phyllis had when she was born, she had an extra finger.
Yes, she had an extra little finger to both hands, a little finger sticking out from the end, and the doctor just clipped it off. When they brought the baby back, we noticed a little hand bandage. So we asked him, I said, Doctor, what happened? What did she do with her fingers? Oh, she had a little finger coming out from, I don't know, from the thumb or from the hand. They said we just clipped it off, and that's it. She was born with 6 fingers in each hand.
Well, Phyllis was a little bit different from the start then.
That's right.
My Uncle Ryan always tells me stories how when Corey was born, he was saying, well, if he has 6 fingers, we're going to leave him on and have a great curveball.
So what was it like having a baby in the family then?
Well, it was a happy occasion. Naturally, being that she was the girl that I finally named it after my grandmother, Peggy. And it was a jubilant affair. It was a very joyous affair. And we spoiled her rotten and put to death. She still spoiled rotten.
You know, yeah, we have 2 of your grandsons here,
Yes,
and you have you've got 8 grandchildren. You've got
Yes.
3 granddaughters and
Yes.
5 grandsons.
yes.
What was the difference between being a parent and a grandparent? What were the
Well,
difference in feelings?
The feeling, well, as far as feeling is concerned, I love them all. Of course, my only regret was that I couldn't spend as much time with my children as I did with my grandchildren, because I had to go out and make a living, bring home the bread and bacon, and kept me on the route. I had a premium route and kept me on the route most of the time. Did come home in the evening, and once in a while I was called to work in the store, and I moonlighted as a clerk in the meat store. When they were very busy. On a Saturday where I couldn't go out, on a Sunday they asked me to come in and help them out, which I was paid extra for it. And
That was for your Uncle Dave?
no,
Who was it for?
Roths.
Jimmy Roth?
Jimmy Rod, Louis Rod, and they used to pay me most of the time on there was Social Security on it, but they paid me under the table, plus I never needed any food stamps to get food from them.
So that's
Like
what,
meat and other groceries and so on, I never had to give them any stamps for it.
Big help.
So that was another advantage I had by working extra as a clerk or a butcher shop.
at the end of the year, in 1945, Bernice returned from the war and she married Manny. Do you remember the first time you met Manny?
Well, they got engaged before Manny left for Europe, for England. And Bernice was left at home, of course, and they got engaged. And of course, there was correspondence and so forth. And right after the war, I got a call at 1 o'clock in the morning, collect call from New York. So he says, Sid? I said, yeah, this is Manny. I said, Manny who? Oh, I'm half asleep. He says, Bernice's fiance, Manny Miller. Oh, I was so surprised, that's the first time. He says, I tried to call the house and nobody was there. I thought maybe Denise was over at your place. So I said, no, she's not here, but I'll try and call her again in the morning to let you know that you're here. And I was very happy to talk to him. Of course, he felt very close to me, a kind of Bernice, being that I was very close with Bernice all the time. And naturally she talked to him a great deal about me. So he felt like he knew me for a long time. And that's how the first time I met Manny. Then Bernice right away left Chicago to be with Manny in New York. Then they both came out to Chicago and they got married.
I remember the wedding a little bit because I was the ring bearer in
Right,
the
that's
ceremony.
right.
I remember pictures of me without my front teeth, and I top hat and tails.
That's right.
And I remember Manny had a top hat that collapsed. You could push it down. And I wondered why mine didn't do the same. I think somebody caught me before I sat on it, trying to push my top hat down like Manny's could. What do you remember about the ceremony? I remember about it, it was so many people, it was so crowded and everybody was so loud. And I remember being there, for me it must have been very late because like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, and I went home, it was raining that night. But it's hard as a child to have any real accurate memories, just vague memories. Well, can you tell me about it?
Yes. She got married, I think, December the 29th. It was one of the cold, wintry days. The streets were sloppy, it was snowing, the weather was pretty bad. And all our friends and relatives were at the wedding.
Where was the wedding?
The wedding was on Roosevelt Road. There was a nice hall. It's a big hall over there. And that's where the wedding took place.
In Chicago?
In Chicago. She had her, his brother came out, and his father. I believe that's all from his side of the family. I can't remember anybody else. But when his brother came out, he met a couple of cousins, Hashkovich's daughters, and sure enough, he fell in love. He married one of those daughters.
That's Nate.
Nate.
So Nate's now living in Chicago?
In Chicago.
Because he came there and married into the family.
Married into the family. And he became part of the family. And we were close, and we still are close. And then when we moved out, take away that.
Okay, David, you cannot play with the channel changer. Okay, and then when you moved out, you said?
Then they moved to New York. They had a business over there, and Bernice wasn't too happy there.
It was what, a candy store business?
No, they had this newspaper and magazine business
A little stand.
right by the subway station. It must have been a very lucrative business because they were open there 18 hours a day, you know. They sold an awful lot of newspaper and magazines and so forth. And they all worked over there, the family mostly. They put in long hours. And Bernice didn't like that. So, meantime, she got pregnant.
Bingo.
And she didn't want to stay there to have that baby. In 1946, when we came out here, we bought a 4-unit building on 7th Avenue near Adams, with intentions that she should come out, sell the business, to come out and have the baby at Los Angeles. Being that we had a 4-unit building, I took one apartment, and Bernice the other apartment, and
Your
Fran,
folks?
I think Fran was home, yes, and remember Fishy, your girlfriend, what was their name already, that used to play around
The
with?
Lazars.
Lazar with 2 girls. That was the 4 tenants and that 4-unit building.
Okay, so your folks were also in one
Also,
apartment.
yes. We lived downstairs and the folks lived upstairs.
And those-
And Denise lived also downstairs on the other side, and my folks and
Lazars lived
Lazars
upstairs.
lived upstairs.
You remember the reason for the decision to move to California?
Yes. When Fran came to the Denise's wedding, she caught a cold right away, kind of the weather conditions. And before she left California in 1943, she was always having colds. She was allergic to a lot of things. She was mostly hawking and schmarking, and she felt terrible. So when she came out here to visit her girlfriend, and she got a job over here, she felt well. When she came back to the wedding, she talked to us. She says, "Sid, you can do the same thing over in Los Angeles as you do over here. The weather conditions are terrific." And she built such a beautiful picture of it. He said, and Dad was retired too. He sold out the business,
The restaurant?
restaurant, because it was impossible for him to handle without help and so forth. So the business was sold. I think they owned the building too, if I'm not mistaken. The business where the business was.
In the was a 3-story building with a couple apartments in it?
Yes, it was 2 apartments in the back, 3 apartments in the back. The back was divided. 3, 4, 5, and the store. It was like the back apartments were 2-bedroom apartments. The front apartments was 4-bedroom apartments. That's where my mother first started with a boarding house.
Yeah, you told me on the 3rd floor, then they moved down to the
Second floor, and then we moved down to the main floor. And Dad didn't know what to do with himself. He came to see us quite a few times. We went over there. So she wanted us to come and visit Los Angeles. At the same time, if you remember Louis Roth,
I remember Louis Roth, yes.
remember Louis Roth? He had 2 sons, Bernie and what was the other fellow's name? Anyway, Bernie was the oldest one. So Louis Roth wanted to come out to California. He had a new Cadillac, and we told him we'll share the gas with him if we'll go together. He said, and he agreed. I called out my dad, and the 4 of us took the southern route and came out to Los Angeles.
Now the 4 of you were Louis Roth, Manny, your dad, and yourself.
That's right.
And you remember when that was?
It was a January in 46, right a month after
Bernice was
Bernice got
married.
married.
So
She
Manny,
came back.
so Manny left Bernice and went on the honeymoon by himself?
No, Manny and Bernice all went back to New York.
Well, who were the 4 people in the car then? Louis Roth, yourself?
Bernie, my dad and I.
So when you got out here, where did you stay?
Well, at that time you couldn't stay more than 5 days in a hotel. 5 days. Because they were rent control. If it was over 5 days, then they had to charge you by the week instead of by the day. This way we paid more by the day than we did by the week. So every 5 days we had to find a place to move to. So it was a hassle to find a place to move to at the end of 5 days.
So how long did you stay in California?
2 weeks.
And did you, obviously you decided to move here. What do you remember about that 2 weeks?
Well, all we did is hunt, look for a place what to buy, where to buy. We were, naturally, we wanted to get in the Jewish neighborhood near a temple because they were both, you and Sherman were both going to the temple. Sherman was going to be bar mitzvah soon. And
okay, we're going to take a minute break.
good.
So, Papa, you're feeding your grandson David a little bit of ice cream.
You betcha. He is. He loves it.
Hey, Joel, how about going over sitting next to Papa and we can
No.
have you in this too now?
No, don't touch. Yes, no. Don't touch. Don't touch. Here's some more ice cream. Would you want some?
No, thank you.
Papa,
Yes.
we were talking about coming out to California
Yes.
right after the war. You were talking about how you looked around, how you moved from place to place, and you found this fourplex unit over on 7th Avenue.
Right.
You remember how much it cost?
I believe around 24,000.
And do you remember how much you had to put down, how the financing was?
Finance was 6%. And we put down, I think 10,000. We bought a partnership with my dad.
So you and your dad bought it together?
Yeah.
So when Manny and Bernice moved to California, did they join in the partnership on owning it, or did they just pay rent?
They just paid the rent.
How much was the rent that the Lazars paid and Manny and Bernice paid? You
I
remember?
haven't got the slightest idea.
When you came to California on a full-time basis, do you remember when that was?
Yes, that was, Mama came out here with Phyllis, I think in July.
And she flew out here. I
Yeah.
remember that because I remember going to the airport, O'Hare International, and I remember that she flew on a TWA Constellation. It was a very big plane with twin tails. That's one thing I remember as a little kid.
That's
Running around
right.
the airport because the plane was very late.
And we drove out on the Buick Roadmaster.
That
Yeah.
trip was made with you, Sherwin, myself,
Maury and Millie.
Maury and Millie Millman.
That's right.
Maury's passed away since then.
That's right.
And that was right after Sally flew out here.
That's right. We sold the house, we sold the business.
How much did you get for the house?
Oh, it was around 18,000 or 20,000.
So you made a profit on it.
Right.
Looks like David is getting into playing things. Well, that's normal for him. That's what a little boy's supposed to be doing. You drove out here, and what do you remember about that trip?
Well, we drove for 2 weeks. And it was an exciting trip. One time I was afraid I lost your boat, you and Sherman. You're way up in the Black Hills, and you both wanted to get a better view what's down below. So from there was a little, you were high up on the mountain, so there was a slide down to a second platform where you can look over the other mountain. Both of you disappeared into the second floor. I looked around, I didn't see you. After I looked over there, and there you were laying on your stomach, because that's the only way you could get down there to look. Well, you gave me such a scare that when I came out and I got you both up, I turned you over. And that I beat the daylight saving. You couldn't sit in the car for almost the rest of the trip. That's how I beat your ass off by doing that. Because you was on the bridge of just falling over. I don't know how many thousand feet down below.
Well, it was far enough it wouldn't have mattered.
No, you would have never come out of there alive. And I thought for a moment I lost your boat. And then we went, I don't know if you remember any of that trip. We went to the Black Hills. We went through the Badlands. We went to Yellowstone National Park.
What do you remember about Yellowstone?
Well, the first thing I remember when we got there was a lot of tents and a lot of little bungalows. We couldn't find a place where to stay overnight. It was the height of the season, and we hunted back and forth. We couldn't get a place where to stay. Finally, around 9:30, 10 o'clock, I was disgusted. I went over to gasoline station and asked him how far was the nearest town. He said the nearest town was Great Falls, Montana. But to drive through the mountains, it was very dangerous because there was no lights, pitch dark at night. You'll drive very slow. I said, well, as long as I can't sleep anywhere, you might as well drive. So I put you two kids in the back seat to sleep, and I started to drive out of Yellowstone National Park. As I was driving through the road, I saw flashlights from a big building. And there was a road. It said International Hotel. As long as I'm here, it won't hurt anything to go and ask. I drove in. Sure enough, it was a one-way drive. There was a staircase leading up to the hotel. I could imagine the staircase alone was about a half a block wide. That's how big the place was. And the two attendants right by the door came down to meet us. I said, I would like to know if there is any possibility for me to get a place where to sleep overnight. I said, I have these two little kids here. They're asleep already in the bag, but I'd like to get a room. He said, there may be a cancellation. Go upstairs and find out by the desk. So I went in there and I asked. He says, yes, we have a stateroom with two bedrooms in it. I'll take it. I remember it was double what the other rooms were, but I didn't care. So we went over there and we stayed there for Saturday and Sunday, for 2 nights. And right away we took you up and we both gave you a good hot bath. The rooms were wonderful. And one room, of course, was for the Maury and Millie, and the other room for the 3 of us. We all took baths. You went to sleep with them. With Sherman went to sleep. I got dressed and went downstairs to the lobby. And it was the most beautiful lobby I saw. They had 3 large rooms. One was playing dancing, another one was a card room, bar. There was no, yeah, there was bars at that time.